Greetings in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. I am Andrii, and I'm here with Bill and Zar, and we're discussing Blu-ray, or clear communication as taught by the Confederation of Planets. And we'll be doing quotes and then a discussion, and so it's going to be lots of fun. Bill, now your intro.
Cool. Hello, we welcome you to this Law of One podcast in the love and light of the one infinite creator. This is a teaching experiment founded on unity, harmony, and unconditional love. The topic covered today is Blu-ray. We are grateful for those who listen to our teaching experiment. We thank those of LO Research who have channeled and continue to channel and produce spiritual information to this day. We thank those entities of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the one infinite creator that provide information we wish to discuss. We have no intention of misrepresenting Confederation philosophy. It is our desire to serve through this experiment. We are attempting to learn a topic has a social memory complex. This means we desire and have the goal to teach a topic as a unified and harmonious group. At this point, we wish to make it clear that we are not experts or authorities on any such topic we cover, and we are not infallible on what we have to say. We would ask that you use your own discrimination to determine whether the words and concepts we share with you have value in your spiritual journey at this time. If there are any that do not, we would ask you to lay them aside and think not a second thought about them, and use only those words and concepts that speak to your heart, that speak to your journey that you are on now, as we do not wish to be a stumbling block in your seeking. Thank you for watching, and we start with Zar on the topic of Blu-ray, and we like to welcome Zar here.
All right, I'm honored to be on here, and I think the first quote that I found that resonated me was from Quo in September 28, 2019, where he was wondering if there is a danger or possible misstep to attempt to exercise the Blue-Ray Energy Center before adequately opening Green Ray Energy Center and joining us in fourth density. And Quo's response is that should I read the whole quote?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I am Quo, and I'm aware of your query, my brother. The Blu-ray Energy Center is that which features the love and light of the one creator as it moves into shining with distinct clarity upon the world about the entity that is able to open and energize this throat ray chakra. The clarity of the vision that is available to one who has activated the Blu-ray Energy Center is a kind of crisp and clear apprehension of the pure qualities as they are presented to the perceptions of the entity utilizing the throat energy center. These perceptions have a quality that is pristine, shall we say, untarnished by cloudy or impure, or disturbed by confused perceptions. Thus, the green way is that which is given freely without discrimination, that is possible within the Blu-ray Energy Center that sees more clearly that which is before the face, before the eyes, before one's presence. Thus, it is not always necessary to open the green ray before the Blu-ray Energy Center is itself activated. For the Blu-ray sees with a certain clarity that which the green ray does not see. For there are not conditions for the green ray in being able to see or love that which is before one. Thus, there is no danger as far as we are aware of opening the Blu-ray before the green ray. The Blu-ray offers the one activating it a certain kind of protection. However, in relation to other selves, it is perhaps more helpful if the green ray is also activated before the Blu-ray, so that the Blu-ray may be informed with the acceptance on an unconditional basis of another entity or the creation about one.
Cool. So do you want to reflect on that?
Yeah, I guess my reflections on this is that there is no strong worry about working on the Blu-ray energy at the same time as the green ray. There's not a need to wait until one is sure the heart chakra is fully activated to work on the green ray. However, one may be a bit cold if one is working only on the Blu-ray and not on unconditional love and the green ray. So it's still recommended to work on this with higher priority. I think Will says here elsewhere that wisdom ultimately leads to seeing all of us as the one creator. So the Blu-ray will circle around to the fourth ray eventually. And those were my first reflections on this passage.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like that you can communicate clearly, like, because service to self entities, they open their heart last, so they might clearly communicate their intuitions and their desires and their social stuff without using the heart. So you can definitely open that Blu-ray. But yeah, on the service to others polarity, you generally want to open your heart and have that unconditional love for people, so that you're communicating that unconditional love, when you're using your Blu-ray. Bill, did you have any comments on this? Or
No, I'm pretty good. It's the throat, comes from the throat. That's where the energy center is. It's a clear energy center, and I can go on to elaborate with what I have.
sure, go ahead.
All right. Okay, from Living the Law of One, by Carla, The Choice, page 220, it says, she said, our Blu-ray chakras are impervious to blockage. They dwell solidly in the area of spirit. If our energy can enter this 100-faceted, flashingly brilliant throat chakra at all, nothing can stop us from communicating our shiny truth. That is what the Blu-ray is all about, communicating from the heart. An open heart springboards us to open communication. So from that, we see that the Blu-ray is impervious or invulnerable to blockages. The Blu-ray dwells in the spirit. It dwells in the metaphysical realm, and it's basically open condition from the heart. And let me go on. And Living the Law of One from 219, Carla says, in discussing the Blu-ray chakra, we are talking about pure integrated spiritual or metaphysical energy, and it moves up into the throat. So this is it comes from the throat, and it's pure integrated spiritual or metaphysical, like she said before. And I'm going to go to a Lot Week quote from June 15th, 1990, and it says, Blu-ray contains within itself the power of expression. In this expressiveness of Blu-ray, there exists the joy of creation in its occurrence. Blu-ray is the first energy center within the mind-body-spirit complex, which may act creatively. So it has, that's interesting that the lower four chakras don't act creatively. And I'll give this last quote, and it's from Carla, Living the Law of One, page 219. And she says, as we look at the Blu-ray chakra, we see the working of an integrated mind, body, spirit for the first time. We cannot access our Blu-ray energy center at all until we are solidly within our open hearts and firing on all chakras. We are not in Blu-ray until our voices are voices of love. So, once again, it's the first energy center she says the mind, body, spirit is unified. So in the other energy centers, I guess they're not quite unified. And the Blu-ray must be solidly in the open heart, and it's a voice of love. So I just ran those down real quick, running off a series of characteristics of what the Blu-ray is. So it's the throat, open communication, comes from love, and it's spirit. Interesting. It's first thing that acts creativity or creative. And so that's, you guys have any comments on that?
Zar, did you want to go first?
I think. Oh, I ran into some personal confusion when I saw another passage that said that the Blu-ray Energy Center is most often blocked by those who would communicate that which has not been requested. Like trying to reconcile this with the stance of radiant authenticity that can be offered to all, whether they want it or not, and it will not be pushed on them. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was my idea of how to reconcile them.
yeah, but that's a specific instance. That's like
Yeah.
when not requested. So,
Yeah.
so would that mean the other entity doesn't receive your Blu-ray, or is it blocked in you when you start trying to give people what they don't want?
Yeah,
Mm,
that's a good question. I was wondering the same thing. Now, I did see a quote related to that, and it was talking about
Do you have the quote?
well, I had the quote
I
here.
have one quote
Okay,
from
go ahead.
July 5th, 1992,
Mhm.
which is sort of on this. It is moving into the Blu-ray Energy Center. This instrument sees its strongest center working well and is not in need of further balancing of energy. This is the center of communication. It is most often blocked by those who would communicate that which has not been requested. It is well to have opinions and thoughts on every conceivable matter. This is the fruit of an active mind. It is not loving, however, to answer questions or address seen problems which have not been asked about, or advice sought upon by the one to whom the entity is attempting to communicate. Service to others is very much a matter of waiting and having the patience, of being the quietness of mind to feel and respect other entities' freedom to make choices. So it seems to be a sense of, in my understanding, like a blockage of the flow of energy when I'm trying to communicate something to someone who is not receptive, which will meet a
Right.
wall or at worst have greater distortions.
Mhm.
It,
Mhm.
it would be kind of like healing. You
Hmm.
can't, the person doing the healing, having the healing move through them won't work unless the other person accepts the healing.
Oh, yeah.
I think if we also take the analogy of the lower chakras, so lower chakras are usually blocked when
Right.
you try to control others. And so
Hmm.
maybe communicating without being asked is that form of kind of Blu-ray control of others because you're
Oh,
giving information that hasn't been requested. Whereas if what do you call it? If you're just loving and accepting people, that's the way to clear the lower chakras. And so I guess for the Blu-ray, it would be, you know, only speaking when you're asked. Yeah. Well, which I mean, I know, like for me, that would be very difficult. so,
oh.
so I that's definitely something I have to work on more. Is trying not to talk so much, and
I, I,
uh, developing that patience to only ask when it's requested. Say something when it's requested.
I've got another quote that can bounce off that, but we want to hear from you first, Andre.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
I can get back to that.
All right. So, all right. The one that I had selected here, 2008 0513. The challenge of the Blu-ray chakra is that it takes a well-developed ability to be completely forthright and honest at the level that is not often seen among your peoples and normal conversation. The process of falling in love with yourself is the key in opening the Blu-ray chakra. This compassion also enables you to listen with enhanced ears, ears enhanced by love. It is not that you become able to rationalize and excuse other entities. Indeed, many is the time that Blu-ray communication requires honesty to the point where many would shrink away and not wish to share their shining truth for fear of being rebuffed, rejected, or judged. Yet many times it is just that point of view that you have to offer that is going to be the saving grace for someone else. So uh, I like this quote because it talks about honesty, and there's another quote I know Bill wanted to talk about that was that there's a paucity of honesty in our world, And so, I really value satya, which is speaking the truth always, and aligning your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, so that you do what you say and you think. It's all in alignment, basically. And I feel like that's really, really powerful. And so at least I got that part. you know.
Can I read that quote? It's a real short quote.
Sure, go
Okay,
ahead.
it's from the Raw Contact, session 48.7 from April 22nd, 1981. And Raw says, there is always some difficulty in penetrating primary Blu-ray energy, for it requires which your people have in great paucity, that is honesty. Blu-ray is the free communication with the self and the other self. So it's honest and free communication. And in a way, just to bounce off what your quote is, Blu-ray in a way is kind of, you can say, tough love,
Well,
I mean, but it's loving,
They say, you should only give people the brutal truth if they ask for it.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not loving.
Right. Exactly. Otherwise, exactly, it's not. Yeah, and it could lead to blockages, apparently, because you're giving them unsolicited information.
So kind of from what I'm gathering is the block, because the as I understand it, the upper chakras aren't, they're all impervious to blockages. So the energy is always there. That's generally from what I've got from the Confederation. But let me just say, but the energy, it sounds like is it's there, but it doesn't come out right, it to other people. What do you say, Andrii?
I think that it is. They do mention the only ones that can't be blocked, I believe, were the violet ray and the red ray. Because but I mean, even the red ray, there's some blockages, but the only ones I've never noticed any blockages them mentioning is the violet ray.
Likewise.
Yeah, and so for the Blu-ray, there's definitely some blockages. And I know for indigo, there's definitely blockages. Like in indigo is like, if you don't see yourself as the one infinite creator or deserving of the information, then you're blocking your indigo.
But is that like a block, or you just can't use the energy?
Well, that is a block. You can't use the energy, right? So apparently, I think that what it is it's kind of like, if you're talking to someone, I think that Blu-ray blockage, if it's kind of like, if you're talking to someone and they're not really interested in hearing what you have to say, then you kind of feel a constriction maybe in your throat, and that's that blockage, because it's like, one infinite creator doesn't want this communication happening there. So that's why it's a blockage.
But it's a blockage going out to the other person, other entity.
No.
Oh, well, your throat is blocked, kind of like your throat is like seizing up, at least metaphorically speaking.
Well, with that other entity, though.
Yeah, and the other entity is also rejecting it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, my quote on this was really about listening. And so the compassion also enables you to listen with enhanced ears, the ears of love. And so, but I think that's from the heart. And there were other quotes about that saying, like, if you simply listen with an open heart, then that has healing qualities to it. And so that's one of the other parts of this quote I like. Zar, did you want to do another quote? If you could, like a paragraph or something manageable.
Yeah. Is there something you can teach us that you want us to know? Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's, on the topic of like the communication and blockages, like communication is about transmitting a message from me to the other person. So in line with your quotes, like if I'm trying to instill a message into someone else's brain without their consent, that's like I'm trying to control the machinations of their brain against their will, which is getting so much not
Service
so
to self.
compassionate and loving. Yeah, service to self, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other focuses of the Blu-ray from the Confederation's works is probably represented in this quote that I will read. This is from the Raw Contact session from February 27, 1981, number 32.5. So the questioner says, I believe that for the time being, we've covered the green ray. I'm going to skip over to the blue ray. Could you tell me the difference that occurs between green and blue with emphasis on the blue ray? I am Ra. With the green ray transfer of energy, you now come to the great turning point sexually as well as in each mode of experience. The green ray may then be turned outward, the entity then giving rather than receiving. The first giving beyond green ray is the giving of acceptance or freedom, thus allowing the recipient of blue ray energy to transfer the opportunity for a feeling of being accepted, thus freeing that other self to express itself to the giver of this ray. It will be noted that once green ray energy transfer has been achieved by two mind-body spirits, in mating, the further rays are available without both entities having the necessity to progress equally. Thus, the blue ray vibrating entity or indigo ray vibrating entity, whose other ray vibrations are clear, may share that energy with the green ray other self, thus acting as a catalyst for the continued learned teaching of the other self. Until another self reaches green ray, such energy transfers through the rays is not possible. So one of my big takeaways here, and in some of the other quotes I may not get to, is that a big part of the Blu-ray energy seems to be freeing and allowing other selves to communicate with oneself in a free manner, so that whatever thoughts or experiences they believe may be valuable to share, they feel comfortable sharing without receiving judgment or other undesired reactions. And thus it's a two-way channel where all selves in contact with one are free to communicate with each other.
It's like the other self is in a safe space with you.
Yeah.
You feel safe and secure communicating.
Mm. Yeah, and so there was some mention of the sexual energy transfer there as well, and so they were saying about that you need all of the chakras open, and then also the Blu-ray in order for it to occur. So
it seems to be saying that, like, one, there's a green ray sexual union. If one is well developed in the blue ray energy, then this can be shared with one's partner so that they can both enjoy in the clear communication. As like the safe space is provided, and let's say if I'm so developed, I can communicate compassionately and lovingly and with clarity, and I can provide the space in which my partner can also do so.
And it's interesting that in that quote, it says it's the first energy center that you can be giving, you know. So it seems like in the green ray that it seems like you can also be giving, but there's something different or from the one level to the next, that there's, I guess that's why it's more pure, or you know.
This seems to connect with how the Blu-ray is the creative energy center, or where you become a co-creator. As if the green ray chakra is like unconditional love for all, and thus there's no discrimination of action, and thus there's not room to be giving to any individual other self. Whereas once one starts discriminating with wisdom, then some of these choices become made. Or that's one idea.
It seems green ray is more receptive because you're still like opening the lower chakras, you're still in loving and acceptance mode, whereas the Blu-ray is the first one where you're actually giving people something, you're giving them information, you know, which may be beneficial, especially if they've requested it.
Well, it sounds like that like you're saying, the green ray is to everything, but the blue ray is the ability to finally work in the energy centers to give individually to each. You can focus on an entity and give.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah. All right. Bill, did you want to do another quote?
Sure, I can. Well, bouncing off the listening right here, Kuo, August 13th, 1989, he says, or the social memory complex, no, at the principal Kuo says, it is not always the wise word or the compassionate smile that is of service to others. There are times to listen and say nothing. There are times to be confrontive and surgical and blunt and honest, because the entity you wish to serve has got to know your point of view. Do not do this unless it is asked of you. But when it is asked of you in a compassionate way, express yourself in clear communication in brilliant Blu-ray. So once again, it says Blu-ray is clear communication, and I guess listening is a big part of the Blu-ray, like we've already covered. And you give your point of view when asked, and and if it's helpful, you can be brutally honest, and maybe that'll serve the other entity. And we kind of discussed this.
Yeah, I think that the listening is part of a Blu-ray that has green ray with it. Whereas it's not necessarily an intrinsic part if your heart is not open. It could be just talking without listening.
Well, the Blu-rays functions only kind of when the heart is open. In general,
I'm pretty sure that it can work like fifth because there's fifth density service self-energy, but I guess they're not really they don't interact with people that much, do they? I don't know.
and what am I saying? The negative side works all these higher energies without the
yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Well, I mean, practically speaking, they still need a lot of cognitive empathy to model the other's functioning, to like align with them in practice, I guess.
So, but listening is, I think, a big part of the Blu-ray, because that is communicating back and forth.
Yeah. So I have a quote related to that, and it's 2003-02-19. Resting upon the energy of the center, resting upon the open heart, it is then that the disciplines of the personality begin. That which is the Blu-ray center, or the throat chakra, is the seat of the discipline of creating true communication, true speech, and true statements. It is the seat wherein one discovers the art of listening. And these disciplines feed into those conduits that lead to communication that runs clear, as the stream that does not pick up the mud and the silt of the storm, but rather lets energies as they express and as they resound and as they ripple, not so much judging as praising the beauty of the ripples, not so much resisting as dancing with the patterns that emerge. And I think that also ties in with the previous quote I mentioned. The process of falling in love with yourself is the key to opening the Blu-ray chakra. And they also, I remember another quote related to that. They were saying that basically, in order to really express yourself, you have to kind of let go of your worries and your fears about, that I'm going to be judged. How is this going to, affect the other person, and all those kinds of worries and fears that could cloud your communication by distorting it in various ways. And you have to love yourself and trust yourself that, it's the one infinite creator speaking through you, and you're just gonna let the words come out as they come in, assuming you've done cleansing to make sure it's not a service to self entity speaking through you. If it's a service to others entity, or yourself, your higher self, then that's all good. At least that's how I read it. What do you?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think this helps to explain how the Blu-ray chakra can radiate outwards regardless of other entities, while I still want to listen to whether they're receptive, because I'm going to approach each interaction from the stance of sharing myself openly and clearly to the degree that the entity is open to receiving this. So like this presence is radiating out, and this willingness to share with clarity.
And I would add, in the process of all these things, is we can't do for others what we can't do for ourselves. So when we're talking about falling in love with ourselves, and in the chakra, it seems like we're being able to be brutally honest with ourselves and having open communication with ourselves and our feelings and our thoughts, because so we do the open and honest communication with ourselves first, and that's the when we're looking at ourselves and having a non-biased approach to ourselves, and then we do it and we clearly communicate with ourselves, then with honesty and with love, falling in love with ourselves, and then we can do it for others. That's what it sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are some quotes that basically say this directly.
You want to?
You want to do a quote? It's your turn, Zar.
On that subject, have you got it?
Exactly on this subject.
Okay, go where you want.
This is from Latwii in May 16, 1993. The concept of allowing the self to move along the path of evolution in a free and open manner is a concept which has meaning to an entity which works with the Blu-ray energy center of the throat. Such a configuration of energy is then experienced by the seeker in a manner which promotes the clear communication of the self with the self and with other selves, accepting the self and other selves, and freely expressing the self to all which surround the self. In this manner, the giving of freedom and acceptance to others springs from the giving of freedom and acceptance to the self. For you are also a mirror and reflect that which is your own being to those around you. It sounds like the freedom and acceptance that one learns to give to oneself in falling absolutely in love with oneself then reflects out onto all the other selves.
Yeah, that's similar to what Bill was saying. I think that's right, because we're all a mirror,
right?
And so by having that clarity within us, we can reflect that clarity out.
And we can't do for others what we can't do for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you got another quote you want, Andrei?
Oh, Bill, I think it's your turn.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me see. I am going with. I'm going to go and there's a from Raw Contact session 3910, March 16th, 1981. Rod simply says, the Blu-ray seats the learning teachings of the spirit in each chakra within the mind-body-spirit complex, animating the whole, communicating to others this entirety of beingness. So this tells me that once we have learned things and it's seated in the Blu-ray, then we can communicate this learning to others as a form of teaching, if you will, So we learned, then through the Blu-ray we communicate what we've learned, and that I think is like one of the first. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's that was it's not too early in the sessions, but it might have been one of the first time Ra mentioned the Blu-ray.
Mm.
I'd have to look at that, but I think it might be.
Yeah, I think in terms of if you look at the analogy of Blu-ray as fifth density, which is the density of light and wisdom, then you can, I guess, corroborate that it has to do with kind of wisdom and knowledge, and so I distinguish it in terms of the Blu-ray, the difference between the Blu-ray and the indigo ray, as in the Blu-ray is more like analytical and deductive reasoning, based on like previous experiences and synthesizing them and putting them together, and then saying something that makes sense in light of previous experience. Whereas indigo ray has more to do with opening yourself up to one infinite creator to tell you what the answer is, and then saying that with not necessarily using past experience.
Yeah, it seems like that quote I just read kind of confirms that.
Mm-hmm. Zara, did you have a comment on that?
Not much, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, I got another quote here. 2019 12/21. I am Kuo and am aware of your query, my brother. In order to unblock the Blu-ray, which has the opportunity to share the love and light of the one creator fully and freely with those about one, it is oftentimes helpful when some blockage of this Blu-ray occurs to look at the other self that has caused the difficulty or irritation as the self. Thusly, one looks into a mirror and sees a portion of the self which is yet unbalanced within the self, and act upon the irritation as if it has been created by the self, and for the movement along the spiritual path by the balancing or resolving of the irritation through contemplation and meditation. Now, so this seems to me like they're saying that this blockage of the Blu-ray occurs to irritation at some other person, and say, for instance, like cancel culture, or where this practice where people cut someone off, where they don't talk to them. So they have these strong feelings that blocks Blu-ray communication, because they're not willing to talk to that other person. And so it's saying that that can be healed, that kind of Blu-ray blockage, by recognizing that person is you, and then realizing, what aspects of that person am I not forgiving in myself. At least that's what it means to me. What do you guys think?
No, that sounds good. I'm still trying to balance what Carla wrote in the Living the Law of One, where it says the Blu-ray is impervious to blockage. I there must be a subtle something going on there, a paradox that I might have to look further into.
I think Carla, she was doing her best, but she may not have really got it as much as we would have hoped. So really, it reminds me of that whole back Islamic thing. There's what God said, there's what the prophet said, and there's what the historians say. And then so it's like there's what Ra says, there's what Kuo says, and there's what the channelers say.
Yeah.
I mean, we have access to some later channelings that are also helpful for clarification.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah,
they do mention blockages. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, yeah, I think my best way to approach this sort of paradox is that this sort of radical self-honesty is something that can probably be done fully on one's own, and this probably radiates outward regardless of the other entities. And this probably might resonate with what Carla was saying, although it's not quite the same as no blockages. There was some other passage that talked about the Blu-ray being able to radiate regardless of others, which also seemed a bit confusing to me with the whole thing about listening to others to not try and force ideas into their minds.
Mm.
Jim McCarthy has been going on doing question and answers. This I think would be a good paradox to ask him.
Yeah, this might be a good one to bring up to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he
Yeah.
knows.
All right. Zara, you got another place
I
you want to
guess
go?
as to Logan's quote, I'd like to say that in the personal development and communication literature I've read, there's a common theme that stuff that triggers one personally or triggers someone else very often has to do with some personal catalyst that one is dealing with and is not entirely a facet of this other self. And thus, examining this internal aspect that's imbalanced and trying to work with this, is Quo recommends, is probably a helpful way of figuring out how to communicate well with this entity without bringing one's own distortions into the mix.
Yeah, you're projecting.
I guess it sounds about, you might be projecting.
So, based on the time thing here, we're in the final definition segment now.
Oh, okay. How much time do we got left?
So we got 18 minutes left.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
does anybody got a final quote or?
Oh, well, we've done a bunch of quotes, but if we want to figure out a definition for Blu-ray, and then we'll work on consensus, and then we're just kind of like talking about it.
All right.
Until the end. That's my understanding of what we're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, can I introduce a phrase that I really love from a quote where I don't need to say the whole quote? So this is from Quo in April 17, 2005, and Quo refers to the process of moving from the open heart to the Blu-ray energy as moving on from the open heart to the articulated heart. That is where the entity would describe as the energy of the Blu-ray or throat chakra. And I love this phrase, articulated heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
Try to explain that to me more. What do you think that means? The
articulated
heart.
I think there's some passages where Quo refers to the one with the open heart yet underdeveloped Blu-ray energy as being very loving and compassionate, yet in action perhaps not so effective, and they could be bumbling or cause harm by accident even though they're caring. Or maybe I'm very loving and yet I cannot articulate my intentions or desires or cares clearly. So now moving on to the Blu-ray energy, I'm becoming able to articulate myself well, and it's the articulated heart.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray, each of the rays reflects density, and the Blu-ray reflects the density of wisdom.
Right.
So so we're pacifying love or mixing love with wisdom, or balancing love with wisdom.
Yeah.
In the Blu-ray.
Yeah. Also, another way I interpret that is, say for instance, you're just in the heart, and then you're just like, let's forgive and love all beings. Okay, that's the essence of the heart, right? And then someone tells you about some difficult catalyst they had where they went through some trauma or whatever. And then if you're just talking from the heart without any wisdom, then you're just like, let's forgive and love all beings. But that might not be enough for them. And so if you're talking more from with the articulated heart, you would listen with your heart to what they have to say, and then think about the other person that was involved in this traumatic experience where they may have resentment towards that other person, and then you will do the process of seeing that other person's perspective, seeing the divine within that person, and then articulating that why that person is valid, why that person has their own experience, or why they did what they did, in a way that will help to facilitate the forgiveness in the person that you're talking to. And so it's articulate. So you're kind of sharing that wisdom of forgiving and loving that person and helping them forgive and love others. Maybe I need to give a more specific example.
I got a good personal example. Just recently, there's a guy and he plays guitar and he's up there and he's a heavy drinker and he's getting drunk and all he keeps saying is, am I good enough? Am I good enough? And then, we went back to his house with him and he's really drunk and he kept saying, I'm a sinner. He's Catholic and he's stuck in these paradigms, and he, he's like 59. A lot of people have died on him and he's gone through a lot of trauma in his life. But this trauma is like built up for decades and decades. He's just like, and he's just really stuck in a box of perspective and he can't get out of it. And so if you would to like have love and compassion and just only the green ray, then you would sit and like wallow with him in empathy, like, oh God, just like join him like Job and his buddies, like in the Bible, we were pouring ash on each other and stuff. We're just wallowing in despair with you instead of just going, hey, dude, I mean, I want to tell him, I'm going to tell him one of these days, hey, if I can talk to you sober and maybe give you another perspective, maybe, but if you won't accept that, I can't do anything about it. So I can either sit and wallow in his despair with him and love and compassion, which doesn't do me any good. I mean, that's just, it's love. It's still loving, but it's not like very helpful. Or I can, give the opportunity to have another perspective offered in a loving manner. And then, maybe if it's up to him, if he wants to move forward. So.
Yeah. Like one example I could give would be, say, for instance, someone has, their house broken into by a drug addict or something, and they steal some stuff. And then they're like, oh, I hate, the person who was robbed is like, oh, I hate drug addicts, and like, oh, I'm just so angry with them. Why did they make those choices in their lives? And so for me, what I would do to help give them like that articulated heart would be like, well, you know what, that person, like, to give a realistic example, this happened to one of my neighbors, and so it happened on like a May 3rd or something, and it's like, well, they probably got kicked out of their house. They were evicted because the winter was over and they had nowhere to go and it was raining, and they decided to break into your house to have somewhere to be, and a lot of the times people have drug problems, it's because they feel excluded from life and they have no purpose, and they're trying to escape that misery. And so, we can be compassionate to these people and give them, like land to grow their own food, or, opportunities for growing, and, with love, helping them heal. And that is, yeah. And so, that kind of conversation helps to bring, it's like, this isn't just some drug addict, this is a person, and they're having a hard life, and it's part of the systemic problems that we can fix. We're partially responsible for how our system operates, and then that can help soften their heart and then have more love for everybody.
Yet at the same time, it's up to that entity that's has these problems to kind of want to move forward, see things in a different perspective.
Yeah, and in my experience, sometimes, depending on how one words things, people are much more conducive to opening up and receiving help or not. So if I just plow in directly like, oh, you're in trouble, you need to do this, that, and that to get better, or I start actually listening to them and giving them the safe space where they feel they can communicate openly, then I may be able to connect with them and see in what ways we might actually be able to connect and clear the way to move forward and heal.
Mhm.
And we're walking that balance of are we enabling, are we not enabling, and if and it's up to us. It's we can be loving and go, okay, I'm knowingly enabling this person, and that seems loving, but you get to set the boundary for that, because maybe there's a point where, hey, I've been as loving and enabling as I can, and we're just stuck here, and it's not making me happy. So I get to set the boundary for myself,
Mhm.
and we all get to do that, and we shouldn't be ashamed or guilted because we're doing that. Because we're the creator as well, and we're expressing
Yeah.
ourselves as well as the other. I mean, as long as we are constantly going forward with the intention of loving, I think we're doing good. But we really balance the love with the wisdom. If we can, and that should take us to a little higher level. Help it should help us polarize more too, I would think.
Yeah, the discernment can probably free up energy to love even more in a sense.
Yeah.
Well, in practice.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. So did we want to define the Blu-ray and come to a consensus on it
Yeah.
now?
Can I read a couple quick more quotes?
All right. All right. Well, we have 8 minutes left.
Okay, these are real fast.
Okay.
It says, this Kuo, May 12, 1996, seek to assess the needs of that entity to whom you speak, and then attempt to communicate directly into the heart of that energy. That gives the other full respect, and it shall aid in effective communication. And then this last one, Kuo, September 3rd, 2006. If your deepest desire is to learn how to love with wisdom and to know what it is to have compassion while invoking justice, then you move into those energies of acceptance and of justice that are invoked in the Blu-ray. So those are other interesting qualities of the Blu-ray. Invoking justice in the Blu-ray. That's interesting that they would say something like that.
So how does that work, invoking justice in the Blu-ray?
I think just kind of what I've been talking about is balancing the wisdom with the love. It's like, how far do you want to enable? And is that justified on the other person? Is it justified for you? Is it justified for others around the two individuals? There's because we're all unique and we all have our own moving parts and our own situations. So the true Blu-ray would open us to be able to communicate and look at all these different dynamics kind of going at once and seeing what would work best for the entities and the other ones around.
Yeah, and like I would add that justice can also be about like sort of impartiality of treatment, like treating everyone equally and not just one person, and fairness as well. So then I might actually need to say no to someone who's very close to me because I wish to be more fair, and these might be challenges too.
And also, I guess if we take that analogy of like light and wisdom, then law, or books, they're all Blu-ray, right? Because it's basically someone who at least tried to articulate the heart at some point, whether it was a closed heart or an open heart is up to question, like Leviticus or whatever, or like the Bible. And we have lots of codexes, and the international human rights and all that. So those are all expressions of attempts to create a more just and cooperative world. And whether they were effective is, I guess, up to interpretation. But they're attempts nonetheless.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to be done with clear and honest communication.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing out of the quotes I read was the idea of respect. You're always, Blu-ray is when you're honestly communicating, you're respecting the other self and
Yes.
yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So back to final definition and consensus. I would say final definition is clear and honest communication, accepting of self and the other self. And you guys have things to add?
Cool. In
So-
line with the clarity and acceptance, like providing safe space to self and other self to communicate honestly and freely.
Mhm. And I'd add adding using analytical mind for wisdom and articulating wisdom and understanding wisdom and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And is there a consensus on this topic?
so, oh yeah. I would like if we could define and come to consensus on a blocked and unblocked Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
So I think that an unblocked Blu-ray is when you're clearly communicating to someone who is open to receiving your communication. And a blocked Blu-ray would be either one of two options. Either if you're trying to communicate to someone who doesn't want to receive what you're communicating, or you don't want to communicate with that someone because you have resentments or other kinds of blockages in that regard.
Like projecting. You have the problem.
Well, I mean,
Yes. Mhm.
as a personal example, I'm often highly attracted to girls that I see, and I feel a very strong sense of blocked energy when I don't try and communicate this. And when I communicate it, even if they say thank you, no, still feel a very refreshing sense of relief, as if so much energy has been released that would be sort of pent up in there, trying to find some way out. And probably even asking if someone might be open to this kind of communication. If they actually say no, I think that would probably release the blockage, as I did what I can to bridge communication and someone said no. So then the initial query has been done.
Mhm.
So this is sort of like a personal blockage and not really one due to the other person.
And maybe that was a service in and of itself. Maybe this is someone who wanted on some level to receive that kind of compliment, even if they wanted to say no to it.
My experience is the majority of the time it seems to be more service to myself and some lesser service to the girls. They usually seem appreciative, but I feel like the greater release is probably on my side.
Okay.
And I think people in generally just like to have open and honest communication.
Yeah,
And sometimes, a lot of times, you'll run into people that are kind of like taken aback because there is honest communication. It's like, oh man, nobody communicates like this. We all have our little walls up and our little,
Going back to respect, I think very many girls say, oh, it's nice that you're so respectful, to actually just ask instead of like making a physical move without assuming things.
Or being just weird around them.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess we agree on the internal and external blockages to an extent.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. So any final remarks before the outro? There's about 1 minute left.
No, I'm good.
Hey,
thank you, guys.
Good.
Thank you, Zar.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Bill.
All right. We end this session and are grateful to the audience. In this teaching experiment, we have attempted to learn a topic as a social memory complex that is unified, harmonious, and full of unconditional love, which characteristics are extremely important to us because we resonate with the Confederation philosophy and believe we are, as humanity, forming and becoming a loving, unified, and harmonious social memory complex from planet Earth. We thank the Confederation and LL Research If you'd like to support LL Research, you can go to their website at llresearch.org to donate and or buy their books and other material. However, all LL Research material, the channeled material, is free at their website. We hope this teaching experiment will give one knowledge that will help one see the love in the moment, will help one open their heart more and more clearly see the unity of all. We thank you all for viewing, and please know that we love each other and you. At this time, we leave you as we found you, in the love and light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai Vasa Baragas.
All right.